Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a preview. This one is for the new edition of Macher, which was originally released 33 years ago and was in fact one of the very first entries into Board Game Geek.
Yeah, this is an abstract political strategy game that has a lot of different mechanics, including auctioning and bidding and resource manipulation and things like that.
So you are representing one of the political parties within Germany, and you're going to have an election that's going to happen either 4 or 7 times, depending on whether or not you want to play a short game or a long game. Now, as you mentioned, this is a heavy economic strategy game. It's rated as like a 4.3 on BGG, but don't let that fool you. It's actually not a very hard game to learn. There's just a lot of steps that take place because each one of the rounds is going to have 9 different individual steps that you're going to be taking in unison in order to fulfill the acts of being a political representation within Germany.
That's right. And we've done the setup of the game board here already. At the beginning of every game, you're going to select 4 different federal states to hold your elections in. And if you look at the circular board, you're going to see these 4 cards, 2 representing large cities and 2 representing small cities. And this is going to determine how you score points during the game.
And make sure you guys note before we get into anything else that this is a prototype. That's why you're going to see some warping boards. The components aren't final by any means. Make sure you guys check out the Kickstarter when it launches for all the final components. Each of these boards is going to represent one of the elections for those states that you're talking about. You're going to start always in the smallest state, and you're going to work yourself around clockwise, meaning that in the very first election, we're going to vote on Hamburg. In the second election, it's going to be the Rhineland, and you're going to keep going around till all those elections are going to happen. Again, we already noted you're going to play this 4 times, or 4 rounds, or 7 rounds if you play the longer game. When you look at each of these individual boards, there's going to have a smorgasbord of information on them, right? So let's just talk about one of them in general. The first thing you're going to notice, as we said, is the state that you're voting on. Then you're going to see the representation for the 5 different players that could be participating. These are the 5 different political parties, or the color that that player may be using during the game. Each of them is going to have their own individual track. This is the trending scale, or how happy they are in that state with the people that they're trying to pull into it. At the bottom, you're going to have a place for all of your different cubes, and these cubes are going to represent
these cubes represent party rallies that you can hold in this federal state. And you're going to actually take these cubes and place them here over the course of the game. And the reason you're going to want to do this is to earn votes. And votes are tracked here via this scoreboard. And again, this all kind of comes together to reference these 4 popular opinion cards.
Yeah, the popular opinion cards at the very beginning of the game, you're going to see all 4 of them face up for the place that you're actually going to have the election, with only 3 up in the next one, and then counterclockwise, fewer and fewer are going to be represented because you're actually going to discover those as the game goes on. What you're trying to do in this game, if you boil it down, is you're trying to match your agenda or your political agenda with the agenda that's happening in that state. And that's all represented by these cards that you see face up. There are 7 different cards or types of cards that people in Germany want to vote for. It's either for it or against it. That's represented by these 7 cards that you see up here that are placed randomly on the board at the start. You have things that could be represented like healthcare. You have education, you have traffic, you have national security, and these are randomly seated at the start of the game. And to start the game, we're going to have our own political agendas in front of us that are drafted at the start of the game, and you want to try to draft these cards to match what that particular state wants to have.
Yeah, you have to build your party program, and this is done in an interesting way. Like Jeremy said, you do draft these cards, and at the end of the game, you're going to have a few of them in front of you, and you'll notice that these are going to match exactly with those popular opinion cards. And the reason you don't see all of the cards available on the board at the beginning is because you're trying to plan ahead and guess what some of these later elections might be wanting you to have.
Also in front of you, you're going to have 5 in the short 4-player game. These are your shadow cabinet. These are a one-time use through the course of the game that you can use at a very particular part in the game in order to kind of influence each of these individual tracks in the game. We'll talk about these. These are great because they do cost money, but they do allow you to change things within the game. Each player is also going to have media markers in front of them. These media markers are going to be tracked at the bottoms of each of these boards. Influencing the media in this game is just as important as everything else is. You want to influence the media because if you do and you win elections, you can transfer those over to earn you victory points at the end of the game, Plus, they allow you to change out some of the political opinions in the different areas.
That's right. Whoever has the control of the media also controls the polling. And you get to choose whether or not you release that polling information to the public or not. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
All right. Also, you're going to have several other boards. One of the boards you don't see at the bottom, but below this are the cards that you're allowed to change out with your own political stance. These are cards you can change in and out. You have a couple boards up here. You have one that's going to show you the turn order, some doubler markers. These are allowed to be placed on each of these different cards that allow you to double some of your votes in these areas. You have poll cards, and then you have a board here that's going to track your media and your state at that time. Yeah. Plus you have some paper money, which is double-sided because everything in this game is going to be done through auction bidding to try to get first player. Plus no one's going to know how much money you have because the reverse of each of these dollar bills is going to be blank. So you're not going to see how much money people have to be able to use through the course of the game. There's some other cards in the game. You have these donation cards or charity cards. Basically, they're underhanded ways to earn money or be able to reflect or change your state opinion. And is that it?
Oh, well, there's one more piece that you're going to have, and every player is going to have it, and it's the scoring sheet. And this scoring sheet contains a lot of information, but you're actually scoring different aspects of the game while you play, and you're also using this to make blind bids. But what's maybe more interesting about this is the reverse has a lot of different powers that you're going to be able to choose at the start of the game to kind of build an asymmetric power set that no other player is going to have at the table.
So it helps you start your agenda at the start of the game in a very unique way. Maybe you want to go for votes very heavy at the start of the game in some of the larger states. Maybe you don't. Maybe you think everybody wants to do that and you want to go to the smaller states where you're not going to be contended with as much. So the player abilities are actually built in right into those cards you said, and they're variable. So you have the freedom to choose how you want to start, which is really unique. All right, so let's talk about the game, and we're going to boil this down just to the basics because I could spend an hour and teach you the game because it is a long teach.
And also there's so much you need to know about the different strategies. You can have an hour-long video just on the multiple strategies that you have to use for every round of this game.
Yeah. If you just want the basics, we'll talk about it right now. This player sheet is probably the best thing that's ever come out of this game because it literally walks you through everything that you need to do in this game. It's broken into 9 different steps. And almost always in the game, the player that wins the opening auction, which is the very first thing you're going to do in the game, is going to lead each of those steps. Being the first player is very important, and you're going to have a bid at the very beginning to see who that first player is. You're going to bid on this piece of paper that Ryan showed you. You're going to write down your bid, and the player that wins that bid is going to expend their money. However, they're going to have the decision at the very start of every single one of the rounds in order to manipulate a lot of the things on the board.
Yeah, and once you've determined the player order, like Jeremy said, everything is going to happen in that order. The first thing you're able to do every round is swap out your party program. And we have a board here. It's going to reveal a certain number of different cards based on the number of players that are playing. And on your turn, you're going to have the option to take those cards. And you're going to be able to take one face-up card of your choosing and one face-down card that is random. In addition, if you don't like your options, you can actually wipe that and just choose whichever one you want. And then you have to rearrange your party program. And you take those 2 cards you just drew and you choose which ones you want to keep so that you still have 5 in your tableau. This is how you can prepare for those future elections and try to score the most votes.
And remember, you're trying to match your political party to the popular opinions of these areas, either positive or negative in one of these 7 different agendas that the state is voting on. Those 2 steps are called the preparation step. Next, we go to the deployment step, and this also consists of 3 steps. The first one that you're going to do is actually try to influence the media. This is where, in turn order, you're going to be able to pay 5,000 German marks to any one of these areas to place some of your media markers in these particular areas. This is done because you want to be able to control the media in order to make changes that we'll talk about in the future.
Yeah, this is an area control mechanic for sure. Whoever has the majority of tokens here controls the media. If you manage to tie someone, then actually no one gets control. So again, first player is very important because you kind of can control how many of those tokens you have in every area.
The next thing to do is to organize your party rallies. Again, in turn order, players are allowed to buy some party rallies into each of these individual areas. Your party rallies are going to be represented by these cubes here, and you're going to be placing them right below your trending scale. When you buy these, all you have to do is look at this chart on the player scale, and it's going to show you how much it costs to bring new ones into these areas. And these range from 1,000 euros just for one, all the way up to 20,000 euros if you want to bring 8 into that area at a time. Why do you want to have these? Because during the vote section, you're allowed to actually convert these polls or these rallies, into actual votes. This is what you want to do, because there is a multiplier, which we'll talk about, that's going to allow you to gain votes, to allow you to gain points.
Yeah, and also during this phase, after everyone has put out as many rallies as they want, you're going to send in your shadow cabinet. You have that hand of shadow cabinet cards. You're going to be able to play one into each of the 4 territories if you want, but you only have a limited amount of these cards for the whole game, and once they're gone, they're gone. In addition, each one of these costs money, so you need to have the money to pay them when they're out on the board.
Yeah, also talking about the shadow cabinets, there's 3 areas on here. The top area is something that you always get to do when you place this card down, and the other 2 is a either or. You're making a choice, but there's some other things you have to consider here. Some of these have exclamation marks on them, meaning that the first player that uses their shadow cabinet to do that particular effect is the only player that's allowed to do it in that round. And there's a whole list, again, on this player aid that's going to show you all the different things that your shadow cabinet can do. And as we alluded to, you're actually going to be able to use all or none of these in particular areas. You're just going to lay them down in the areas where you want them, and you're going to go around the table denoting where you might want to place someone. And then in turn order, according to whichever state you're in, you're going to go through each of these in turn order, with the first player being able to do theirs before the second player. That's why turn order in this game is so incredibly important. Once you're done with those changes, then you get to actually have the media come in and inflect their will on some of these things.
Yeah, that's right. Whoever controls the media is going to have the option to change out some of these party or popular opinion cards here with these ones up here on the stack. And you'll notice that there is a positive and negative for every one of these opinions. And once one is used, it is gone for the rest of the game. So you can kind of look around and see what people have, and you can toss one out there so that they can't use it in a higher valued state, or you can just try to set up your party program so that it matches the popular opinion exactly.
The 8th step you're going to take is actually doing an auctioning off of the polls. These are the poll cards here. They're going to have a backside that's going to show you what is on the opposite side of it, plus the other 4 political parties that could be involved. Again, you're going to auction these off. The winner is going to have one of 2 choices. If they just discard the card, they're allowed to move up 3 on the party base, which is going to give them more money at the end of every single one of the rounds. However, they can enforce the actual poll itself, which is going to move them up on one of these trending scales and move everyone else down on that trending scale depending upon where this poll takes place. One of the other types of ways to, again, change the dynamics of the game itself.
Yeah.
The final thing you're going to do is you're actually going to do the election wherever that ballot box is. In this case, it's going to be in Hamburg. This is when players are actually going to be using all of their rallies, their trending scale, their opinions, and what they have for their political parties, and doing some math to figure out how many votes they're actually going to get in that area.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the meat of the game, and a little bit of the more complicated step, because when you look at this board, you're going to see that we have the 4 states. Only one of those states is actually up for election right now, but if you have party rallies in some of the future states, you can actually cash those in now. Even though the election is not happening, you can secure votes for yourself now. For example, if you match a particular popular opinion card now and you think you're going to get the most votes, you can kind of take a gamble on when you're going to cash these party rallies in. So you're going to get the option to do that for all 3 of the inactive states before the vote happens.
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of changing of these political parties in front of you and the popular opinion. So there are times in the game when you absolutely 100% want to cash those in to gain votes now, because those are probably going to change by the time that election actually occurs.
Yep.
The election itself, the points you're getting for, and I'll briefly explain it, you're going to look at however many party rallies you want to turn in. As long as you have a certain base, you're going to add that to whatever your trend is and get a number. That number is going to be multiplied by how well you're able to match up your party of 5 cards in front of you with the popular opinion. That could be a number ranging from 1 all the way up to 4, 5, 6. You're going to take that number, calculate what that multiplication is, and gain that many votes.
Yeah, and each player is going to do this for all their pieces. So you're going to end up with a situation where people have somewhere between 30 to possibly even 40 votes.
Or more.
Or more. Yeah. But at this point, you need 50 votes to win the election.
Yeah.
And this is where the negotiation and political aspect of this game comes into place, because if you don't have enough to reach 50 votes on your own, you can form a coalition with another player whose votes could take you there.
Right.
So in this case, green with 43 could choose between red or yellow, or red and yellow could work, you know, potentially, and create a coalition to get past that 50 marker.
And when you get past that, why do you want to get past that 50? It's because you want to turn those media markers that you have there into future victory points. No matter where you are on that track, though, you will get some victory points for it, which you're going to note on your score sheet. Each one of these city-states is going to have a range. Depending on where you fall in votes is how many victory points you can earn, up to the maximum amount that's up here, which is going to be your 50 or more. And you're going to do that for 4 rounds in a row in a short game. So surprisingly, you know, I have not played Macher for at least 15, 16 or more years. It's been a long time since I played this. And we actually had this conversation afterwards. How well does this game hold up today with all the new mechanics that are out? It's 33 years old. And surprisingly, it holds up really well. Like, when you think 33-year-old game, it's hard to go back that far and think of a game that would hold up now, especially a more Euro-based game.
Yeah, and they have made some changes to this game to modernize it. I know they have, for example, removed the dice from the game.
Yeah.
I never played the original, so I don't know how big of an impact, but anytime I hear that you've removed dice from the game, I think that is a more modern way to approach board games.
It makes it less random and more deterministic on how you play. So, guys, hopefully that gives you at least a brief overview of what Macher. Felt like we talked about for 30 minutes on how much is going on in the game. There's quite a bit going on, but when you boil it down, you follow that play rate. It's a very simple game to follow, and there's a lot of robust changes and things that you can do in order to inflect your will in this. It is very competitive as well.
It is very competitive.
So
a lot of take that.
Yeah, you're going to be messing with other people's agendas as you go, but that's part of Macher. If you have any questions, make them in the comments below. 2 to 5 players from Spielworxx, and we will catch you guys next time.